Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the VAK Indian History Podcast. I'm Utkarsh.
Namaskar, Sumedha. Welcome back. Welcome back. And what's the new milestone we've reached, Utkarsh? Will you tell
We have
us?
news for you because we have reached the big 5-0. Not in age, at least not yet.
And for
No, but
me,
50,000.
and for me, it's in the rear view mirror. So what can I say?
No, but it's the number is 50,000 subscribers. We're glad to be here. It's been less than maybe 2.5 years since we started. So it's good to be
Yes,
at that number.
yes,
Um,
yes.
yeah.
Thank
And
you,
so thank.
viewers. Thank you, subscribers.
Mhm. Yeah. No, and I was saying it's good because we are not really seeking out to be, we are not trying to be, we're not optimizing, the outrage, there's an outrage way of getting views and an outrage way of getting subscribers. We try
Sensationalist.
to really steer far away from that. So
Yes,
I'm glad to see
yes.
that people enjoy this content for what it is, which is relatively authentic.
Utkarsh, relatively authentic. It is
Fully
authentic,
authentic.
100%.
Fully authentic.
100%.
Authentic.
Yes, yes.
No, no, no. The point that I meant was the broader philosophical point is that all of life is a little bit getting at absolute truth is impossible. So that's kind of the philosophical
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
underlying of my of
And
my
people see our consciousness episode if you want to understand that, right?
yeah, and also the difference between Indian philosophy and Western philosophy, right? Because Western rationality seeks absolute certainty, which is a
Truth.
little bit difficult in the Indian way of thinking. Hence, I said
Yes,
relatively authentic.
yes, yes.
I was paying attention.
Yes, so you are now really into the VAK way of thinking, into the VAK Indian history podcast way of thinking. It was a bit of a learning journey for you as well, Utkarsh, as it has been for me. For me, in a very literal sense, because I've researched so much, learned so much. It must be the same for you, this 50,000 subscribers.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, the the amount of just not what should I say? How ridiculously interesting and I would say I would even use the word outrageous true facts are. It's not even funny. It's not even funny. It's like literally if
Yes.
you wanted to just annoy people and tell them, poke a hole into a bunch of people who believe that the West is the best, just using that in a very normal way, you will see that actually no, there's a lot you need to dig deeper, and you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist or a
My
jingoistic
job.
person. You just have to look at the facts, and the facts are actually quite compelling. So that's been a very interesting journey for me.
Okay, so let's launch into this episode, and I will start in a slightly different way, Utkarsh. I will show you and the viewers a couple of videos, and then
Okay,
I want you to decide on or tell me what it is that we want to discuss today. What am I hinting at? What could it be?
maybe some
So,
clues.
clues,
Clues? No.
yes, yes. And clues is right because as you will see from my first share, it's all about clues and it's all about just a minute, just give me a bit of time. Let me share.
I can't hear anything though.
You
I
can't
think
hear it.
there's a special way of sharing in Zoom, if I remember correctly, but I have never done it that so that the audio can be visible to the other side. Audio playing on the computer
Okay,
is
so let
visible to
me
the
try
other
that.
side.
Let me try
Yeah.
that. But anyway, you see that this is a Victorian era. What else can you see?
I see a magnifying glass, so it's a detective of some sort.
Okay, of some sort.
I don't see a deerstalker hat, so that's not Sherlock Holmes. Or
As
is
it
is that
happens, it is indeed Sherlock Holmes. Let
where's
me
his hat?
try. Let me try another video. That Sherlock Holmes talking about one of his cases, which is called the Norwood Builder. Now I'll try and show you another video.
Hmm. You're dealing with someone who's read all Sherlock Holmes books, short stories back to back at least 3, 4 times over the years, if not more.
Okay. Okay, so
So
then that will be interesting for today's episode. Now let me share this one. And I don't know whether can you hear?
no, but I see. I know this movie. Yeah, I can see the movie. Now I don't know what it is, but it's this there in the title. It's the famous movie Seven. I don't want to give a spoiler. I know exactly how it
Yes.
ends.
Okay. Okay, so there you go. So the first
Yeah.
one was, Sher-
So what's common between Sherlock Holmes and Seven?
yes,
Is it?
what's what's common between Sherlock Holmes and Seven? What's common between what they were doing? And what's common between that magnifying glass that Sherlock Holmes takes out to examine a lot of very interesting things whenever he goes into a place, wherever the murder or crime has been committed? What's
Hmm.
that? What is common? What were things that he was looking at?
I know the
Maybe the
answer. So
viewers,
should I be guessing? I don't think I should be guessing, but
no, don't guess. If you know the answer, there you go. We will go ahead with your answer,
yeah,
whatever that may be.
fingerprints, marks.
Fingerprints, exactly. So that was Sherlock Holmes in this story, The Norwood Builder,
Hmm.
which, by the way,
Hmm.
is the first case of Sherlock Holmes where he uses fingerprints. And the other
Hmm.
was, the movie. And again, there was a very big scene in that movie where somebody's fingerprints were coming to life and they were able to guess the way the
Hmm.
case goes with the fingerprints. So today,
Hmm.
we are
Hmm.
going to discuss fingerprinting as a technology. Now,
Okay.
Utkarsh, you may well ask me why. What's the connection? Can you guess at a connection between fingerprinting and VAK Indian History podcast?
As with anything else, think plastic surgery, think what else? Think calculus, think
Yes,
algebra, think your
yes,
calendar.
yes,
I'm guessing we have the same story going on over here. A story of something that was invented in this part of the world and
yes,
then taken to another part of the world, its origin
yes.
forgotten,
Credit
and then
looted, credit looted.
credit looted.
Yes,
It's the same old story we've heard a
it's
million
the same
times.
old story, but a very, very interesting one. Now, there
Hmm.
were a couple of strands, two or three strands that I wanted to
Hmm.
pursue. One is, of
Hmm.
course, the exact discovery and use of fingerprinting in the police.
Hmm.
One
Hmm.
guess, where exactly in India did it start? Utkarsh, you know that place really well. You've grown up there.
Calcutta.
Yes, right first time. Writers Building,
Hmm.
Calcutta.
Okay.
That which is now
Hmm.
the seat of governance, or maybe not,
Hmm.
depending on the
Hmm.
way this particular new government does. But that's the
Hmm.
place where the state government operates from, has been operating from at the
Hmm.
time, or at the turn of the century, the turn of the
Hmm.
19th and 20th century. It
Hmm.
was where the CID headquarters were. And that was where the technique of fingerprinting actually was really physically developed. So that's one strand. The other
Hmm.
strand is why? Why
Hmm.
is it that the idea of using these fingers or
Hmm.
fingerprints as an
Hmm.
identification for the person
Hmm.
come from? Why did it come into anybody's mind that this
Hmm.
fingerprint could be something that could identify you forevermore?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's one strand, and that ties up with a lot of Indian thought, a lot of Indian textual analysis, a lot of the things
Hmm.
that we've done before. As in, remember the time when we did Jyotish, and the
Yeah.
time when
Yeah.
we did,
Hmm.
divination, Jyotish. And in
Hmm.
fact, we
Hmm.
had also taught palmistry, but at the time I had spoken more of Kiro and the way it had developed in the West. Today,
Hmm.
I am to give you a little peek into Indian palmistry, and then, maybe we can do an episode on that separately. This is
Okay.
strand number two.
Hmm.
Where
Hmm.
would you like me to begin? And of course, we must understand at least something about fingerprinting before we can
Hmm.
go on with
Yeah.
uh, developing the ideas in
Hmm.
this episode. First, understand a little bit about fingerprinting.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I guess just start at the beginning because the theft of the technology is just the last part of it. I want to understand what is the technology or what is the
yes,
thinking.
yeah. So, there are two basic things about using a fingerprint or 10 fingerprints as an identification for a person. The first thing
Hmm.
is that they are unique to each person. No
Hmm.
two people have the same fingerprint,
Hmm.
even if those two people are twins.
Hmm.
The second thing is that they do not change. through the life.
Hmm.
They don't
Hmm.
change. What can happen perhaps is that there's an accident, then there'll be a scar, somebody gets burnt
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
or something like that happens, or a cut
Yeah.
happens, then there will be a scar.
Hmm.
Guys, they don't change. So you see, a one-to-one correspondence and
Hmm.
a complete uh, firmness, as in no change across the life. This obviously makes it very, very easy to use it as a marker for
As
identification.
identifier. Yep.
Yes. Now, I will show you some more things. My sharing didn't get off to a good start, but this time, let's see. This time, since I will not try a video, maybe my sharing will get off to a better start than it
Hmm.
did.
Yep.
These floating meeting controls are very annoying. So, this one, yes. Are you able to see these things,
Yep. I
which are called
see arches, loops, and
fingerprint pattern?
worlds.
So, these are the three main contours, as in the
Hmm.
classification of the contours that are there, that are made of the ridges that are there in our fingers.
Hmm.
Why are those
Hmm.
ridges there? There are some biological reasons for those ridges.
Hmm.
One is that they give us that slight friction, which makes it easier for us to hold things.
Yep.
That's one of the main reasons for those ridges being there, and there's certain other
Yeah.
biological reasons. These are
Hmm.
the main patterns. Remember these arches, loops, and whorls. What else is
Yeah.
there? There is also something. Now, these are what are called characters or ridges or ridge
Hmm.
characters minutiae. So apart
Hmm.
from whorls and arches, etc., you also have these broken things somewhere in the middle. These also
Hmm.
have different shapes, and it is
Hmm.
because of these that you can actually make every person's fingerprint identification in a unique manner. Okay, so these are the different names, not important for
Hmm.
us, but just realize that these are minutiae and they
Hmm.
are of many, many different types which are classified.
Hmm.
There are
Yeah.
roughly eight of these rich characters classified. Next, when you are comparing fingerprints, you find out whether
Hmm.
they are arches, walls, etc.
Hmm.
If that is the same, then you look at these minutiae, these ridges, and if you can match, then this is a unique identification. There are 80 classified as a whole. If you can match 10, that is a unique identification.
Okay.
Okay, so this is how, for example, minutiae within the overall ridge patterns, etc. Now, I
Hmm.
thought that we would do something interesting, as in, okay, can you see this now? A fingerprint?
Yeah.
Can you see it clearly?
I can still see I can see I'm seeing the same thing that you were sharing. The
Yeah.
Is it a
Okay,
different
wait.
thing?
See, this is a different thing. So let me stop sharing this, or I don't know. Let me stop sharing this and share something else. Okay, can you see a fingerprint here?
Hmm. Yes.
Okay. Now,
Hmm.
as it happens, no mystery about it. My
Hmm.
finger. I
Hmm.
just showed you three types of those ridges, arches, whorls, etc. Let me make it even bigger. And I thought I could analyze my own fingerprint. I thought that this looks very much like the arch type of fingerprint. What do you say?
Hmm. Yeah, I see the arch over
Yeah,
here.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. Now we have one more fingerprint. So let me show you the arch again, just so that you can feel certain about it. Wasn't it similar to this one?
No, I'm still seeing the same thing.
What are you saying? What are you saying?
The same. The same fingerprint.
The same fingerprint?
Yeah.
I thought I had stopped sharing it. Let's see. What can you see now?
Waiting, waiting.
Now,
I see that original material which you had shared
I want
with
you
the.
to look at me.
Yeah,
arches.
correct.
The
Yeah.
fingerprint that I showed you just now, does it or does it not
Hmm.
look like this arch?
Yeah, it has a bit of that kind of a
Yeah,
mountain kind of thing.
yeah.
Hmm. What
And
does that
now
mean?
that my fingerprint is the arch
Hmm.
type. So first I get classified according to that, and then
Okay.
I will be classified according to the different minutiae.
Hmm.
Another fingerprint, or can you still see just the original?
Hmm. I can see just the original.
Okay.
Okay.
So I will have to share again. What can you see now? Can you see a different fingerprint?
Yep. Oh, it looks familiar.
Yes. Maybe it came from your finger. I can see this fingerprint
Why
is
the
different.
guitar case is behind this fingerprint?
So can you see that this one is not the arch type? This is the wall type. It's going round and round.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's your
Correct.
fingerprint. So you will get a
Yeah.
different classification and you will have some different minutiae,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Correct.
So I thought it would be fun to analyze our own fingerprints also in terms of the
Hmm.
arches, walls,
Hmm.
etc.
Hmm.
So it is according to this that fingerprints are classified. We'll go into it
Hmm.
in later detail when we see how it happened in Calcutta.
Hmm.
I will introduce a bit of the other strand, the Indic one. What, if at all, have any such thing in any of our shastras that have come down to us? So, yes, indeed, there is something called the Samudrika Shastra. Samudrika means
Hmm.
ocean, and it basically refers to a whole ocean of knowledge. This Samudrika Shastra is the idea of understanding the physiognomy, not
Hmm.
just your fingers, fingerprints, but your head, face, shape of the body, skin, eyes, everything. So
Hmm.
this Shastra, the original Shastra has those books, those compositions have been lost. But there are
Hmm.
some excerpts which exist in some of
Hmm.
the old encyclopedias, one of them being the Bṛhat Saṃhitā of Varāhamihira of the 5th
Hmm.
century, which I have mentioned a number of times. Then there is also the
Hmm.
Garuḍa Purāṇa. And here I want to
Hmm.
say something. If you go to the internet tells you that fingerprinting was referred to and exists in the Arthashastra. Wrong. It does not. So here's one thing that I have to sadly and truthfully state that a particular thing that we are discussing does not find its antecedents in the Arthashastra at all.
Hmm.
There
Okay.
are a lot of mentions of the finger and of the angul, etc., but
Hmm.
that's in relation to measurements. It's not in relation
Hmm.
to identification. Also, there is a amazing chapter on forensics, which fingerprinting is
Hmm.
all about. Amazing chapter called a book called Book 5, which is called Kantak, all on ancient forensics. And in case,
Hmm.
Utkarsh, you ever feel like we ever feel like discussing ancient forensics and how the body was dead body was examined, putting it into a vat of oil, how interrogations were conducted, how poisons were actually discovered. So you used to cut out a piece of the heart or the liver and put it in the fire. And then the color of the flame would tell them the poison.
Oh, okay.
So there are a lot of interesting things in that book on forensics, book 5, but there is no
Hmm.
fingerprinting. So people, if ever you read on the internet that the Arthashastra has details of fingerprinting, please
Hmm.
know that it is a
Hmm.
lie. We
Hmm.
will go back to what is the truth.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
truth is that the Samudrika Shastra existed, and there was the Bṛhat Saṃhitā of the 5th century. Varāhamihira has written it. We've discussed it so many times in the for astrology, for
Hmm.
so many other things, and the Garuḍa Purāṇa and so many others. I wanted to show you
Hmm.
a little bit of the kind of descriptions which are given in the Bṛhat Saṃhitā of Varāhamihira. Again, I will try to share something. Today is not best day for sharing, so let me let me first get my sharing page in order. So let's see. I think I have gotten. So this is a very interesting book. It's a publication by the
Hmm.
government of India on fingerprinting, the origins
Hmm.
of fingerprinting, etc. And it has a lot of
Hmm.
very interesting information. Now you see
Okay.
about the minutiae, about the different shapes which are there other than the arches, walls, because
Hmm.
these are the things which actually make up those 80 ridge patterns which you can establish identification. This is
Hmm.
what was established in the Bṛhat
Hmm.
Saṃhitā. These are the shapes.
Okay.
You see, these are the ways in which they have been named,
Hmm.
the ways in which they have been understood. So there is
Hmm.
something which is called the kamal, that is a lotus. Then you have a kundal. Then you have a trishul. You have a trishul, Shivji's weapon. A toran is a
Hmm.
flag. A
Hmm.
trikona is a triangle. Are you able to
Hmm.
see these figures?
Yep, I can see all of them.
So these, Utkarsh, I re-emphasize, are from the Samudraka Shastra as we have found excerpts in the Bṛhat Saṃhitā. These are what? 1600, 1700 years old.
Hmm.
Can you imagine that there were no magnifying instruments at the time?
Oh,
Can't
actually, I was
see
going to ask
text
that. So,
now.
how were they?
Yeah,
They were just looking at it from the
yeah,
eye, or?
yes.
Hmm.
Extremely good question.
And what
So,
was it used for back then? Now we use it for whatever
yes,
crime. What
yes,
what was the purpose of this
yes,
back then?
yes. So, what was the purpose of the Samudrika Shastra? Uh, the purpose was divination and an understanding of the person as well as that person's future. You remember Jyotish and how we had discussed
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
everything in the world, the cosmos is one, and if something changes, it has an effect on the human body. So, therefore,
Hmm.
if the
Hmm.
moon moves somewhere or any of the navagrahas move somewhere, it has an effect on the body. It
Hmm.
is an extension of the same idea, that same Sanatan Indic idea that the entire cosmos is one system. And if there
Hmm.
is something which is happening somewhere, it will have an effect on everything in human physiology. Keep
Hmm.
in mind, suppose you're very intelligent, or you're very stupid, or you are a criminal, or whatever you may be, it will have an effect on your body.
Hmm.
Idea was understand the person and to understand the future of the person. To just give
Okay.
you a kind of exact reference, chapter 68, 69, and 70 of the Bṛhat Saṃhitā will give you this treatise on physiognomy. So there is a different one on Puruṣa-lakṣaṇa, which is for men, Lakṣaṇa, which is for women. Then you use all these as well as 12 aspects of the body to predict the fortune of the person. So it was used for divination. The Samudrika Shastra was for divination, but what he thought, Utkarsh, was how did this divination kind of segue into identification is a very interesting practical example which goes on as we speak and has been going on at a temple in South India for the past whatever, I don't know, 1200, 1500 years.
Hmm.
So, Varāhamihira wrote or composed this Bṛhat Saṃhitā, and it is a datable Sanskrit text in which lines and features of the hand and the foot are treated
Hmm.
as classifiable and nameable. So, what are we establishing here? A principle. The principle was used not for identification or criminal work, but for divination. That's a separate matter. The principle has been established in Indic philosophy. Then a few centuries later, you also have the Garuḍa Purāṇa. This is the Pūrva Khaṇḍa Chapter 65. And
Hmm.
this again talks of Sāmudrikam and the different marks and the different ways in which you can
Hmm.
classify men and
Hmm.
women. Why is this interesting? I will not go into verse this and verse that. It's interesting.
Hmm.
Formally states that we have referred to the Samudrika Shastra for this section of this Garuḍa Purāṇa. We can be certain that there was something which is now lost. they were
Hmm.
referring to. And this Samudrika Shastra is one of the oldest compositions of our different Shastras. And since it is lost, it's very difficult to say when exactly it would have been written. So, do you want that there were many other texts? Have I
Hmm.
established the fact, or do I need to give you the names of some
No, no,
other
I think
texts?
it's very, very clear. So what's clear is the following. One is they are examining fingerprints to the same extent that we are kind of examining them in the modern day. There are
Yes,
classifications for the patterns, so on and so forth. That's clear.
yes, yes.
Number two, what is clear is that there is a purpose behind it, little bit different, not a little bit, very different from today, but
Yes.
linking back to the whole overall theory of mind of ancient India in terms of how they look at the world, right? Divination, or
Cosmic
basically,
theory, in fact, cosmic theory, the
yeah,
interconnectedness of
yeah,
everything.
yeah. Now, for me, the interesting bit is, okay, when does the transition from thinking of it as part of this theory versus thinking of it as a crime tool, where does that idea originate? Does that originate in
Before
India as well,
crime,
and that gets
Utkarsh,
transferred over to the, yeah,
before crime, Utkarsh, we have to focus on identification because before it
yeah,
was used to identify criminals, it was used for legal identification, not for
that
criminals.
makes
But
sense.
remember
Yeah,
the
that makes
thumbprint?
sense. We can start there. Yeah,
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 remember the thumbprint? So I
yeah.
want to, mention all the different Samudrika Saṃhitās
Hmm.
and Samudrika Tilaks, etc. But they are there in almost every language of India and across the board, across all the centuries. There's only
Hmm.
one which I will mention again because that one would have influenced our heroes of today, which I will mention these two heroes, Bose and Huck, in a bit, but they could have
Hmm.
influenced our fingerprinting heroes of today. I mention that book a little later. But I think I have made my point. And for those
Hmm.
who like a list of these, we will append it to
Yep. Yep.
the video, right? We will append it to the video. The one which I want you to remember, Utkarsh, is Bṛhat Samudrik. Okay,
Hmm.
just remember that. Or maybe I will mention it again. So, you want to know about crime. I want to tell you that before we go on to crime, we move on to identification. So,
Yep.
was it in any way used for identification, legal identification, etc.? In the medieval period, there are many, many instances of very important legal papers being actually attested and what can I say, made legal and made permanent by the hand, by the uh, by imprinting the hand.
Hmm.
This was something that you saw when the Timurids, many people will know as the Mughals.
But was
They,
this a unique thing to India
yeah,
to use the?
actually not. A little bit of this used to happen in China,
Okay.
but they did not develop it to that extent. But it did used to
Hmm.
happen in China, those putting fingerprints on documents. But it was not
Okay.
developed there to that extent. This used to happen in ancient China.
Got it.
So, in the medieval period, you
Hmm.
had the handprints of Shah Jahan, of Jahangir, etc., and also
Hmm.
handprints of other rulers who, the moment they entered into a treaty with someone else, then they would put a print of their hand, and that would be the final thing. Again, I would like to show you one or two of these. Just give me a minute to open it.
Hmm.
This is from that very good publication by the government of India, which I will put a reference to it at the end. And there's lots of
Hmm.
detailed stuff in it which you can look at.
Hmm.
But I'm just showing some.
Hmm.
This is, I don't know how clearly you can see it. This is
Hmm.
the handprint of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Have you heard of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the great Punjabi
Of
Raja?
course.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is the handprint of Maharaja Ranjit
Why
Singh.
is it so distorted like this? Like,
Because part of it is faded, Utkarsh. You can just see the lower part of the palm,
yeah, yeah,
and
correct.
you can see the part of the fingers. The tops of the fingers
Hmm.
are no longer visible. That's why it seems as though
Ah,
it's
okay.
kind
That's
of,
why.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So this
correct.
is Maharaja Ranjit Singh
Hmm.
on a treaty in 1827. Now this is
Hmm.
another one. Can you see different hand now?
Yeah.
So this is the handprint of Raja Brajraj Dev of 1783 AD. He was from Jammu and he was entering
Hmm.
into a treaty, and this is his handprint. What is it
Okay.
used for? It is being used for identification, legal identification. This
Okay.
is something which was very commonly practiced in India. Remember this also because the person says that the connection between this and identification is Herschel. And Herschel
Hmm.
refuses to give any credit to anything except himself. Now, before I go on to Herschel and Galton and the
Hmm.
great fraud
Hmm.
Henry of
Hmm.
Scotland Yard, I want to talk about a particular temple.
Hmm.
And this identification through fingerprinting. You want to do it, Utkarsh, I want to do it, we can go ourselves. You can go 150 kilometers south of Chidambaram in Tamil Nadu. There is a small
Hmm.
temple, the Vaikhiswaran Kovil. In this
Hmm.
Vaikhiswaran Kovil, for the past, well, since 11-1200 CE, so no, since 7-800 CE,
Hmm.
practice is going on. The practice, this is called Nadi practice.
Hmm.
Nadi, remember another connection we have with Kalari and Kalari Payatta. So that was
Hmm.
also Nadi, where
Hmm.
all the different parts of the body were
Hmm.
enumerated and classified, but for the purpose of honing the body as a weapon and for
Hmm.
keeping
Hmm.
the body healthy. You remember, viewers, you can go back to our episode on Kalari for this.
Hmm.
We did it, I think, about a year or two ago. Again,
Hmm.
everything is connected. The body is classified by sage Agastya for the purpose of fighting, for the purpose of health. And the body was also classified by sage Agastya for the purpose of identification. So, this temple, for hundreds and hundreds of years, the
Hmm.
thumbprints or the fingerprints of countless individuals is there. There are palm leaf manuscripts with the past, present, and future of countless individuals written over there.
Hmm. Hmm.
So when British rule came, they just destroyed a lot of it, ruined, burned, took it away. Then they sent it for auction. But some of the old families of that temple bought it at the auctions, and some of them are still available. So if you go there today, you arrive at that Nadi center. Something will first ask you for your thumb impression, find out who you are. Right thumb for you and left thumb for me. Then I put it on an ink pad and then I'll put it on a paper. The person who you have gone to, the astrologer, he calls himself the Nadi practitioner. He looks at the print. So then what will he do? He identifies that print as a spiral, a shank. This is the arch, whorl, etc. that we had just spoken about. So he
Hmm. Hmm.
identifies this into this is what is called loop and whorl classification in modern fingerprinting. So he identifies you, say, for example, as as a chakra. So there is an already existing classification of 108 subdivisions of
Hmm.
these chakras and shankas and spirals. You will be one of those 108 classifications. So those specific bundle of palm leaves will be taken out. Once it
Okay.
comes, what is this? This is what corresponds in modern day fingerprinting to primary classification. Next, we go secondary classification. Secondary classification is done by using the different minutiae that I told you about. Remember that?
Hmm.
Or is it getting too
Yeah.
technical?
No, I get it. Yeah.
Here, how do they do the secondary classification? They ask you questions. Who, where are you from? Are you married? Who are your parents, etc., etc. This is how they do the secondary classification. Then,
Hmm.
after these yes/no questions, they will arrive at the exact palm leaf, which will tell you your. Here, criminals are not in the firmament right now, but identification very much is. And using the same structure as modern fingerprinting uses. Primary
Hmm.
classification and then secondary classification. Even the loop whorl structure, the names are a little different, but it's the same. And this has been happening
Okay.
continuously for 1200 to 1500 years. And it is said to have originated with Rishi Agastya. Rishi Agastya is one of the founding rishis of Vedic
Hmm.
civilization. So we don't know how far back he goes,
Hmm.
right? Here, what do we have in medieval India? What do we have? We have this is the fingerprinting classification system operating in at least one temple that we know of. There could have been many which could have been destroyed. You know what was happening to India at that
Yep.
time. It was also using the handprint to identify people who are entering into treaties, etc., whatever it may be.
Hmm. Hmm.
We have Saṃhitā Shastra, which has a very detailed understanding of the body's physiognomy, including the hand, the finger, and actually, it's not just fingerprints, it's also toe prints.
Hmm.
Toe prints are
Okay.
also equally important. So, these things are there. So, suppose we arrive at 1700, 1800. All these diverse streams existing in Indian thought, textual, philosophical, as well as practical. So is that
Hmm.
believable? I mean, is it
Yep.
something which is established and you have any
Yep.
questions about it?
No, it makes sense. Yeah.
So now, of course, if I want to make this very strong statement that modern fingerprinting as it exists today was actually started by two Indians, then I have to prove it. Because right now,
Hmm.
if you just Google fingerprinting, what will tell you that there's a famous book by Galton where he has the first one which describes the history of fingerprinting. It will talk about William Herschel. It will talk about Edmund Henry. Indians will exist only as, Hindus. Remember those Hindus with double O or Gentus with G and T double O. They had some picturesque nonsense going on, but not nothing really. So that's how
Hmm.
Galton puts it, and that's how Herschel thought about it. So what
Hmm.
does Herschel do? Herschel is the one who is credited with really fixing up this identification business. That he was the first one who said that this is an identity. And no two fingerprints are the same and they don't change. Now, we know that that is a lie because we have this Samudrika Shastra which has been shouted
Hmm.
from the rooftops for many, many years.
Hmm.
Herschel was the grandson of the famous astronomer William Herschel, and he arrived in India as a East India Company officer after
Of course.
1857.
Hmm. Good year to
Also,
arrive.
yes, actually, once, at that time, Indians were really beaten down. So, yes, very good for the tyrants and the colonizers. Yes. So, he was
Hmm.
working as a magistrate in Jangipur in Bengal.
Hmm.
He had to enter into a contract with a local contractor who he did not trust. So, he said
Hmm.
that you put your handprint on this to prove that you are going to do this, that, and the other. So, the first time he used it, it was as an instrument of intimidation. That this person who has become famous, his name was Radyadhar Pune. He has become famous. His
Hmm.
was the first
Hmm.
handprint taken by the British colonizer.
Hmm.
Then, since he looked at the prints, and then he looked at his own prints, compared them, and then he got prints of a lot of people, mostly criminals.
Hmm.
And, saw over a period of years, and he saw that they don't change. He says that he established the fact that fingerprints are unique and that they don't change over
Hmm.
a period of 20 years. So by 7, he was a district administrator. Here is where the criminal element comes in, Utkarsh. He had instituted fingerprint recording for prisoners, pensioners, and others under his authority. This is where
Okay.
that modern thing about identification as well as criminality. I mean, you have to do biometrics for everything. Your citizenship also depends on biometrics. So we are actually looking at something really foundational for modern civilization, Utkarsh, is
Hmm.
fingerprinting.
Hmm. Hmm.
Herschel built a huge archive, but how do you search
Okay.
that archive? No, he had no method of doing that. He had not even thought of that because there were
Hmm.
thousands of these fingerprints, and there was no way in which he could identify that. At that time, what was the method of identifying a criminal? So there was something which was called Bertillonage. So this was Alphonse Bertillon of France. He had
Hmm.
identified criminals by 11 precise body measurements: head length, head width, length of the left middle finger, length of little finger, left foot, left forearm, etc. So along with photographs, these 11 measurements, these were the actual identification. Imagine that, every time there was any criminal, you rushed around measuring his head and his left fingertip and his right fingertip and etc. etc. Very clunky and extremely difficult. But it was very slow. It took at least an hour. It involved a lot of physical work and it involved lots of very precise measurements using instruments. So there was a very good chance
Hmm.
of it going wrong. So he also thought that nothing would change. Your body measurements would not change. Because
Hmm.
most body measurements change. They change very
Hmm.
frequently. So it was not even very precise. So now enters our villain of the day. His name is Edward Henry. He was the Inspector General of the Bengal Police. He wanted to get something better. He was corresponding with Francis Galton. Remember, I told you Francis Galton was the first one to do a lot of research and fingerprinting and write a book on it.
Hmm.
All those details about how it can be done. Also has not solved the search problem. He had identified the arches, loops, and walls, still was not searchable. Then what did he do? This in the writer's building. So he started bureau, anthropometric bureau, and staffed it with two young Indian sub-inspectors, are our heroes of today. The first was Qazi Azizul Haq, the other was Hemchandra Bose. Them were born in what is now Bangladesh, in Khulna
Hmm.
district. He was uh, from a Bengali Muslim legal family, but there were some family disputes. Actually, you know what? His elder brother used to be very angry with him because he ate too much and completely spoiled the finances of the family. So they had such a fight, and he insulted him so much that he ran away. And he ran to Calcutta,
Okay.
and he found a Hindu family to shelter him. He studied, he was a brilliant fellow. He got scholarships, etc. And he ended up as someone in the Bengal police as a statistician.
Okay.
Bose also came from the Chuadanga district of Bangladesh. Now, where did he study? I want you to note this very carefully. He went to Sanskrit College, Calcutta, study mathematics. Sanskrit College, Calcutta, it was set up by people who wanted, it's an explicit mandate to bring traditional knowledge into modern times.
Okay.
Studied all our traditional shastras and I tried to amalgamate it with modern things. So, hey, Chandra Bose, remember, studied
Hmm.
over here. And that book that I had mentioned to you, Saṃudrika Shastra, is very, very likely that he also studied the Saṃudrika Shastra because he was studying at the Sanskrit college and learning everything. So, not Saṃudrika Shastra, the name of that book in Bengali is Bṛhat Samudrik. That's a very famous
Okay.
book in Bengali, so there's a really good chance that he studied it. Now, he joined in 1889. So from 1889 to 1894, he worked somewhere else. In about end of 1890s, both these people came together under the supervision of um, this person, Edward Henry. Between 1896 and 1897, Azizul Haq and Hemchandra Bose developed a system of fingerprint classification, enabling fingerprint records to be organized and searched. they used a bit of applied mathematics. Now, Utkarsh, I have had occasion to say many times, I'm not a mathematician. And this one is actually like complicated maths, at least for me. I will not be able to explain it. I will refer you to some books if you really want to understand. What he did was, if I want to just say it in words, classify 10 fingers into a small number of pattern types, loops and whorls, arches as a third category. Put the arrangement of those patterns across the 10 fingers as a pair of fractions. So I'm hoping that the
Okay.
mathematicians amongst you would have understood that. I am merely quoting. Output was a code. This code is what is called the primary classification of fingerprints that placed anyone's 10 finger card into one of 1024 pigeonholes. Within these pigeonholes, there was a secondary classification based on finer patterns and the ridges and traces that we had talked about. That was sub-secondary classification. Then, you basically narrowing it further and further and further and further, going into greater detail and going into greater different patterns. Remember those 80 types of patterns I had spoken about. So
Mm.
finally, an officer had a match in 5 minutes. So that made it very quick and it was infallible. So primary classification was in the pigeonholes and secondary search was in within that. Remember the same as the uh, Vaithiswaram coil, the same system.
Mm.
This tells you that the Indian tradition had been performing this two-stage logical operation on hand features for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
1 minute, I just want to turn some things off.
Sure. Sure. Go for it.
So this was developed, and Edward Henry wrote a paper on it, all the credit for himself. Really, because, he published classification and uses of fingerprints. This book made his international reputation. It made international classification the global standard. It earned him a knighthood, a fellowship of the Royal
But he
Society.
he took the work from these two Indian
Yes,
guys.
exactly. Became the commissioner of the Metropolitan Police and forgot to write the names of Huck and Bose. We forgot.
Of course.
What were they given? These two also given. One was given 2,000 rupees, one was given 5,000 rupees at one time, and
Hmm.
then some few titles here and there. But
Hmm.
I was not happy with this. At the time when this happened, turn of the 19th century, 20th century, he had no power to say anything. He just kept quiet. He was a sub-inspector. As
Hmm.
time passed by, it became 1926, 1930, etc. So he applied for correct credit to be given. And after 30 years, Edward Henry was actually forced to give that confession. And that confession is also on record in the archives that yes, it was Huck and both who did all the work and the credit is due to them. And therefore, the fingerprinting system should now be renamed, don't you think? But of course, no chance, no chance. There it goes. And there's another very important thing to note. The credit off to England. But Bose, Hemchandra Bose, stayed. He stayed in Calcutta and he did two very, very important things. He published a system of telegraphic codes for fingerprints. What was this? You could not send all fingerprints by telegraphic code in one single telegram. So he
Hmm.
developed a Morse code which could
Hmm.
actually send the prints of any criminal across
Hmm.
via telegraph. This is called the telegraphic system of telegraphic code for fingerprints. This
Hmm.
is the ancestor of every modern biometric data transmission protocol.
Hmm.
Imagine how much of our architecture today, international architecture, rests on this.
I was just reading the Wikipedia article. It says the Bureau employees Azizul Haq and Hemchandra Bose have been credited with the primary development Eventually named after their supervisor. It's just one line.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas, and Edward Henry, it is said there's some books have written local gossip of that time that he could
Hmm.
not even understand that system. He used to keep calling them to understand what it is that he was supposed to have invented, and he couldn't understand it. So he would keep calling them to explain, how exactly it works. But then he wrote
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
book, he grabbed the credit.
Hmm.
Hemchandra Bose, because he did further, this is one thing, the system of telegraphic codes. Like I said, it is the ancestor of every biometric data transmission. And he did another
Hmm.
very important thing. Up till this time, what did you need? You needed these 10 fingers, but you didn't
Hmm.
always get it. So
Yeah.
what did he do? He made it possible to conduct this identification using one finger.
Ah. Okay. Anyone.
Yeah,
Well,
this,
anything. Yeah.
yeah. So in 1927, he published Fingerprint Companion, in which he set out the first single-digit fingerprint classification system.
Hmm. Hmm.
This shows you that Morse was really the genius behind all this. And he's not given any credit for this too. So every modern forensic procedural which talks about one partial fingerprint and this fingerprint, it all goes back to
Hmm.
Hemchandra Bose and that book that he
Hmm.
published in 1927. It is so aggravating and annoying, Utkarsh. All these really path-taking things for which
Hmm.
zero credit is given. As if Indians are not seen, they are shadows. If an Indian did something, it cannot be seen. They just
Hmm.
march across the screen, they march across the stage, and nobody sees them. So, of course, Henry confessed, he eventually wrote that, and then, it was accepted. But nothing else. Nothing else. Even that
Hmm.
confession, was that Henry confessed with people. Suppose I researched it and I went there and read what is there in the archives that I know exactly what he wrote. So what did he say? He said, Morse has devoted his whole life to perfecting the methods by which search is facilitated. As his labors have contributed materially to the success achieved, he is entitled to great credit. So, the endings of these people were very unequal. Henry became
Hmm.
a baronet and retired as
Hmm.
the commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Force,
Hmm.
rich, fettered, and famous. And
Hmm.
both of them, Huck and Bose, they lived in very small places. They were given some titles to make them happy, but really nothing much.
Hmm.
And Huck,
Nothing much.
one, was not satisfied with this, so he repeatedly petitioned the government
Hmm.
the credit and to he said that he wanted the credit and he went on and on about it. So I think it was a final confession came. He went at it
Okay.
and there was at by the 1930s that whole white man mystique perhaps had gone down a little bit and
Hmm.
he felt
Hmm.
strong enough, empowered enough to insist.
Hmm.
But not strong enough to insist. 1897, that the Virtue system was phased out
Hmm.
and it was called anthropometry that was phased out and fingerprinting was put in place everywhere. What happened, Utkarsh, was that from Scotland Yard, they adopted it. It worked in Calcutta, then Scotland Yard adopted it. And from there it went across to the entire world, to the British dominions of
Hmm.
Canada, Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, and then police
Hmm.
forces in United States and continental Europe. It's called Henry classification system. Look at the injustice. It was still called the Henry till 1990. The so-called Henry classification system was used everywhere. Then in the early 90s, it was replaced by modern computational approaches using, more
Hmm.
computerized power. So,
Hmm.
what can I say? Except that it's an unfair life,
Hmm.
very unfair life. Before we move to popular culture, Do you have any comments or anything you would like to say?
No, I asked my
Or any
questions already.
questions?
No, it makes sense. I got it. I also referred to what you were saying in terms of the credit. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
So, this whole fingerprinting thing really caught the imagination of the fiction writers. Who was the first person who caught on to this? In fact, even before the so-called Henry system came out, when all this was a work in progress, and when Huck and Bose were
Hmm.
working, let's say, on the classification in Calcutta, Mark Twain wrote a book called Pudd'nhead Wilson. This is the first book in which the
Hmm.
entire plot hinges on fingerprinting. So let me show
Hmm.
you the uh, cover of that book. The cover of that book is also extremely clear to our topic today. Can you see it?
Yep, I see it. I see all the fingerprinting printing going on.
This is a book on the relationship between racial relationships between blacks and whites. So there are two children. They both look exactly similar, but one of them
Hmm. Hmm.
is branded as black and made into a slave, and the other is the master, and then their places get switched and then switched again. Basically,
Hmm. Hmm.
satire, and the whole thing comes out because of the fingerprint.
Okay.
This book was in 1894.
Hmm.
And so Mark Twain is the pioneer as far as
Hmm.
using it in fiction is concerned. But then, of
Hmm.
course, we have in 1903, Arthur Conan Doyle picked it up and put it in his Norwood Builder, the one I've showed, the one of which I
Yeah.
showed the video in the
Hmm.
beginning.
Hmm. Hmm.
That from there, there is a golden age of detective fiction, which is say 1920s, 30s, around that time.
Hmm.
That was, I don't know whether you love these guys, but I am a great fan of R. Austin Freeman. His hero was Dr. Thorndyke. Of course, you have Agatha Christie, which I think everyone
Hmm.
would be
Gato
familiar
Christie,
with.
yes. I haven't heard of
Yeah.
the previous person. Yeah.
Perry Mason?
Huh?
Perry Mason?
I've heard of them, not read.
But Stanley Gardner's Perry Mason is perhaps, one of the, like Agatha Christie, one of the most sold books ever. So he
Hmm.
deployed these plot points,
Hmm.
obviously. By the 1930s, the dusted print, the magnifying glass, loop and wall card, these were absolutely standard in the detective genre. And then
Hmm.
came video revolution
Hmm.
and the video explosion. So you name it, Columbo, Quincy, Five-O, CSI,
Hmm.
NCIS, Bones, Forensic Files, Criminal Minds. All these are use this whole fingerprinting plot point
Hmm.
in some way or the other. So you see, behind all this, figures of Varāhamihira stand the figures of those at the South Indian temple, all those who wrote the Samudrika Shastra. Then, of course,
Hmm.
Huck and Bose. But
Hmm.
all these are, like, we don't see
Yeah.
any that story, right?
Familiar story. Not just,
That story.
yeah.
So you see, a lot of our modern life depends on biometrics. A
Hmm.
lot of our entertainment on all this biometrics and fingerprinting. The effect
Yeah.
of all this is just so, so, what can I say? All pervasive. It's
Hmm.
now become part of the warp and weft of our modern civilization. And you see
Yeah.
how warp and weft has Indic ideas everywhere. It's
Hmm.
an easy jump from just looking at somebody's body to realizing the fact that there is a connection between parts of my body and me, which are unique. Although they are part of a larger whole, they are still unique. You see how both these ideas work over here, Utkarsh. There is a cosmic interconnectedness between everything, which is from where this idea of physiognomy, hands, feet,
Hmm.
face features, etc., being connected to your future, those ideas came from that cosmic connection. Yet, the
Hmm.
uniqueness within that was also again taken out, understood, used. Since it doesn't always have to be criminals, and in fact, I would say that today biometrics is used for
Hmm.
criminals. It's also used for so many other things, for travel, for passports.
Hmm.
Identification is the key rather than criminality being the key. Identification is
Hmm.
the key. I think we've got stuck with criminality because of all the shows and the books, etc., etc.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it is the identification which is the key over here.
Yeah, yeah. The way the modern world works, for sure.
It's it's a support structure on which the modern world works.
Hmm. Yeah. Good. I mean, as always, very clear history. Even if you dig through the traditional sources, they'll grudgingly admit that this is the case, but they'll never double click. And if you want to double click, that's what we do
Yes,
really on the show.
yes, yes.
Hmm.
And I do hope that this was as interesting for everyone as it was for me. It is a pleasant thought, to realize that even at the time when my country was down and out, they were still
Hmm.
working hard and doing absolutely path-breaking stuff.
Hmm.
Because this was path-breaking. So they were doing absolutely path-breaking stuff.
Hmm. Okay, good.
No more questions. No, what
No,
can I say? Doubts. I hope I have given the
I think
evidence
there
in
is
a
no
way which
doubt.
is
It is as
acceptable.
evident as my fingerprint is my fingerprint. That's how evident it is.
Yes, yes. So this was an enjoyable kind of, in the lighter
Hmm.
vein kind of episode. Some of our episodes
Hmm.
are very intense. This one was in the lighter vein. And anyway, Sherlock Holmes and Agatha Christie and, all
Hmm.
these detective stories are my absolute favorite. So I just loved researching this particular episode.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Good. And should we mention again that we've hit 50,000 subscribers
Yes.
and now we want to hit 100?
Yes, absolutely. There is no end to the number of times we can mention this because we are very excited about
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
obviously, we build on this. And
Hmm.
Utkarsh, let's plan
Hmm.
a splash. We'll do something special for this. Just
Hmm.
thinking about it. And if any of you have any suggestions, do tell us what you like us to do. Should we invite some
Hmm.
of you
Yeah.
over to the show to ask whatever you want?
Hmm.
That would also be
Hmm.
interesting. If there's any ideas, tell us.
Hmm.
We'll
Hmm.
try and put them into it. We can try and execute them if we can. Otherwise, we'll come up with our own ideas. And yes, we will soon have a 1,000 subscribers celebration.
Hmm.
Until then, keep watching, keep subscribing, keep sharing, and keep learning
Thank you.
about Indic history. Namaskar.